Hey, hey, how are you? Oh, I feel like I'm like prepared. I got my water and my cup. So if you hear the gurgling in the background, this is what I'm doing. I'm just showing you right up front so you know what it is I'm up to, okay? These are sliding. These are my blue light glasses, but they keep sliding off my face. They're amazing on the eyes though. Wow, really help a ton. So I might have to put them back on. Ooh, I am tired. Who else is tired? I'm gonna have to praise for some Holy Ghost fire so I can get energized. You can get energized. Lean into the Lord for what we need for this next little bit. Oh, let's do it right now. Thank you, Lord, for you. You are like an all consuming fire that is an ever-present Father who is a source that's never ending. And so we just lean into you. We lean into you right now that you are so ready to give us everything that we're needing. We just have to ask. We have not because we ask not. So we just lean into you. And right now, I ask, Holy Spirit, that you would energize us for this moment, that you would give us the sustaining energy and focus and determination that we need right now to suck out every piece of glory and goodness from this time together that we can get. Lord, I thank you that we won't miss a thing. I thank you for the presence of God. I thank you for us to be present. I thank you, Lord, for provision of answers, provision of comfort, that Jesus, you're the counselor, comforter. You are peace. I just thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I thank you that it's not by might, not by power, but by your Spirit. So we just say yes to your Spirit. You are Emmanuel. God is with us. Emmanuel, God is with us. I just thank you for your love. I just call forth each and every woman's spirit here to come to attention. Take the first place in preeminence over our emotions, over our bodies. I thank you, Holy Spirit, that right now you would touch each one of us that have ailments in the body. We just lean into it. We give an opportunity, God, for you to do what you do, which is heal. We lean into it right now. We don't flippantly just think, oh, well, if he wants me to be healed, he'll do it. And then we never give you space to do it. So right now, we just give you space. Jesus, by your stripes, we are healed. I thank you that next cervical spines would come into alignment in Jesus' name. Places where the squishy part that is herniated realigns, that you would fill up the spaces in the spine that is lacking that cushion. I just thank you for alignment in the lumbar spine. Lord, I thank you for shoulders that are restored. And any places that there's bone spurs, God, that they shrink in the name of Jesus. God, I pray for peace into all systems of the body. We need our bodies. We bless these bodies. Our bodies have carried us through this whole time, been there for us. We repent for blaming our bodies, for accusing our bodies, for being critical of our bodies. We ask that you bring alignment to places where we've set ourselves against our own bodies because we felt our body was against us. And every place that we did that in vanity, we repent. We just thank you for these vessels that you've given us. And we bless these vessels to work properly. We bless these vessels to receive from God. We bless these vessels to be strong. We want to steward this vessel well. So I just thank you tonight, Lord, that healing would happen. Physical healings manifest in Jesus' name. Open up heaven, and as it is in heaven, let it be on earth. I thank you that we have an open heaven already existing, and that the kingdom is now. And we get to walk in freedom in our bodies. Jesus, you were beaten and tormented in the body so that we don't have to be tormented in our bodies. And I want you to get everything you paid for. So I just give space for a yes to healing in Jesus' name. We say yes. Just take a breath, breathe out, breathe in. Intentional breaths. We say yes to rest, no to striving. Yes to rest, no to striving. Yes to rest. Yes. We bless our emotions. We thank you that they are messengers, that God created our emotions to speak to us and tell us what's going on internally. We are thankful for our emotions. We thank you that they take their proper place. And we declare that our mind also takes its proper place, that our thoughts would be controlled by the Spirit instead of other things. We thank you, God, for our minds, that they are blessed. Thank you, Lord, right now that any shame that starts to speak to these ladies right now, that, oh, there's that caveat of, yeah, but, or not my mind, or any kind of back talk. Lord, I just thank you for uncovering shame and the ways that it's operating in our lives. Shame is not allowed. This is a shame-free zone. I declare a perfect health zone over each and every woman right now. It's free of shame. It's free of torment. I thank you for helping us walk out in our identity, Lord. In Jesus' name. Okay. I am excited. I'm excited to meet with you guys. I'm also, because it's going to bother me, I'm just going to point it out, okay? Because that's the best way I deal with things that bother me. Let's look. So my office is nice. It's a nice office, okay? Except this one spot behind me. See this? It bugs me so bad. And instead of me trying to hide it with my chair, I'm just going to show it all to you guys. The boxes are my dad's remaining stuff, the remaining stuff of my dad's that I need to go through. And then that pile is like notepads and different things like boards and stuff that I don't know where to put. I have nowhere to put them. So there you go. Now it's not going to bother me. And it's whatever. Okay. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Deanne. Thank you, Allison. Okay. So, who is first? Well, first, Jesse, do you want to come on and just share some housekeeping and how this works and encourage the ladies on how to interact and stuff?
Sure. Hi, ladies. Welcome. If this is your first call, the way that it works is you put in the comments. I already have a list going, but you can put in, if you haven't yet, that you want coaching, and then we'll go through the list. And Melanie will have you unmute yourself and you'll share your process. Try to keep it to like the meat and potatoes. That's what we like to say. The meat and potatoes of your story. And then Melanie will ask really awesome questions to help us dive deeper with you. And yeah, if you want to keep your video on, it's really great to see your faces and to get to interact with you all that way. And then you can chat in the chat box, just things that are impacting you, and to encourage the ladies as well as we go through. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And before we stay with me, Jesse.
Sure.
Before we go into who's getting coached next, I'm curious who joins the after call. So like the call that happens afterwards. And Jesse, do you want to explain that a little bit for people who might not know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Yeah, for whenever the call's done, we have an hour-long time for everybody to connect with each other and just have a community space where you can share what's going on in your process, what helped you from the call. It's really open to anything. A lot of the women have made deeper connections and then at each other on Facebook and Marco Polo and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's just another space for you to connect.
Yeah. Cool. So I'd love just thanks for Haley. Thank you for putting in the chat that yes, I have a few times joined that. But thanks, Mary. I'd love to hear who has joined that. And because I think I would thrive off of that. Like if I was in this course, I love this part of it, but getting the debrief time, like I actually, everything that I do, I love debrief. So if I do projects, I'm debriefing. If I go speak somewhere, I'm debriefing. If we have a meeting, I'm debriefing. Not with everybody all the time, but with somebody. And so I think I would love that part. So I just wanted to know who's taking advantage of it. And if you're not, please do. And last week I went over the call like 10 minutes. I'm so sorry. I will not do that this week. Okay. Because I want you guys to have that time. And yeah, I mean, and here's the other thing too. If it ever feels important, I could like once a week shorten my call by 30 minutes because of how late this goes for some people, and give like 30 minutes sooner that we could break out into breakout rooms. So yeah, maybe I'd even participate in it. That'd be fun. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so it's late for Ashley. Time difference. Tracy, yep. I get it. Okay. Well, just some great information I wanted to collect because I was just curious. So thanks for sharing. Okay, Jesse, who's first?
Yep. Brianna Lee is first.
Come on down.
Hi.
Where you at? There you are. Brianna Lee. Nice to meet you.
You.
What's your question?
So I have a question on a few things. I think kind of like performance, and you were just talking about striving and like rest. And I feel like that's like a huge thing for me. But within that, I I've been exploring a lot like my needs and my desires, and then kind of have like been wading through what it looks like to have those and to see them as a good thing. And I feel like I a lot of times would get my needs met through performance. So for instance, like I had a dream a few weeks ago that I was like just kind of going throughout my everyday life, but like doing work and school, and it was just kind of a weird, like mundane dream. And then at the end of it, it was weird. I had this thought in my dream that was like, you're doing all of this for like the approval of your dad and like to get his approval of you.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's so weird because like consciously I don't think that's true, but subconsciously, like I guess my mind just told me it is.
Mhm.
Um,
And was that in a dream you said?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I'm thinking about how like, okay, my relationship with God is probably like I see it in the same similar way that I do with my dad, but I don't even realize it.
Mhm.
Um, and so then when I like ask God for what I need or what I want or what I desire, like I don't even know how to ask him. Um, or what it looks like, I guess, for him to meet those needs and desires sometimes. And a lot of times I feel like I communicate with God as like he tells me what to do and I do it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just a little stuck on like seeing my desires as good. And um when I do like dream of like, okay, what do I desire for like attention or security or whatever are these things that I want, I just don't know how to like bring God into that and to like um see it as a good thing. Like I kind of hate my desires. Yeah.
Okay. Do you trust yourself?
Probably not.
Mhm.
I have trust issues, so I figured that's probably my own thing.
Yeah. So you struggle trusting others too?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, it does stem from like if you don't trust yourself, it's hard to trust others, right? Because if I
Yeah.
make a choice, right? If I'm going to make a choice to let you into my life, right? And I don't trust myself, then I
Mm-hmm.
can't trust you to be there either because I'm the one that let you in. So me
Yeah.
trusting me, it starts with me trusting me because I'm the one that's going to let you close, right? And so this struggle you'll feel, and people probably feel this, right, with you, where it's like, I want you close, but then there's like a pushback at the same time. Do you feel like you do that with people?
Yeah. I was gonna bring that up too, because I've like learned a little bit about what's it called? Attachment styles.
Uh-huh.
So that's what that is, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's part of it. It's all part of it. But building that relationship with yourself is going to help those relationships outward, those other relationships that you have, because how you treat yourself here affects all your relationships, including God.
Yeah.
Because we also have to trust ourselves for our relationship with God too, ultimately. Like God doesn't take our bodies and minds and spirits over. It's not like, poof, okay, now I'm in the spirit. Now the spirit's taking over and whoo, I have no control over any of this. No, I'm absolutely in charge of my entire being, whether it connects to God or not, and all the things that I can do, right? So I can yield myself to God or I cannot. And um, God gives me that free will to do that. And so I have to be able to trust myself in that process, right? So I would say helping you with starting to trust yourself is going to be really, really, really valuable. Does
Yeah.
that, can you see that? Does that feel true?
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Um, so performance stuff, are you also a people pleaser?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like sometimes it's like you're saying, like, I want to be close to you and like make you happy. Other times I'm like, no. So yeah, I like draw away.
What, Brianna Lee, what week are you in the program?
Kind of in codependency.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you seen any codependent cycles in you?
Yeah, like all the time.
Okay, good. Good. Because typically, people who grow up with codependent struggles or people pleasers, right? Adult people pleasers were
Mhm.
they were parent pleasers as children. And
Mhm.
so we grew up, we were trained to please our parents, make them happy. If they're okay, then we can be okay, right?
Yeah.
Some have really hard extremes where it was abusive too, right? So, but typically that codependency, people pleasing stuff comes from that codependency stuff. And so earning in the performance, earning your place with people, earning the love, earning the respect, earning the approval, built,
Yeah.
it's like that transactional, right? It's just transactional. Um, is that what it was like with your dad?
Yes.
What about mom? You haven't mentioned mom, so
Um, I feel like it was more unconditional with her, but I haven't really like gotten into that. Yeah, like mom pain.
can you say that again? When you moved your device, it went little fuzzy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think it was transactional with my mom as much. More so like when she wanted to make my dad happy and was trying to control the way we acted
Okay.
for him to be happy, for her to be okay. For yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you saw your mom be codependent with your dad then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Totally. Yep. Totally normal. You're normal. Just want you to know that. Oh man. Hold on a minute. I got a cough.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, I spared you from the noise. Okay. How have you been with encounters?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been good. Mm-hmm.
And what about chatting with your heart? Like, have you been able to do that really well or often enough?
Um, I don't know. I've been okay with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's made me a lot more aware of what's really going on inside of me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you move your device, it makes it really like
Oh, good to know. The power went out over here, so I'm like, it's really dark.
oh, oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like trying to sit in the light, but it's okay.
Yeah. So I'd love to do some heart stuff if that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, great. So let's close your eyes. I want to hear from your heart. What are some good desires that you have?
Love, intimacy, trust, warmth,
What are some of the desires that you struggle seeing as good?
Sex,
Okay.
being known,
Okay. Anything else?
marriage, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So you have, when I asked you what was good, you said love, intimacy, trust, and warmth as desires that were good. And then when I asked you what are some desires you have that aren't good, and you said sex, being known, and marriage. So what is it about marriage that doesn't seem like a good desire?
Hmm. I think I'm like scared of it,
Okay.
and it feels like unattainable. So
Okay.
like it's not good because it's not possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
And is that how you feel about sex and being known as well?
kind of. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a theme there.
Hmm.
So really, the struggle isn't seeing these desires as good in and of themselves, but the struggle sounds like you're more scared that you're not good enough for them.
Right.
Yeah. And so, have you have you heard us talk yet? I don't know what calls you've been on or, like in the program, what's been talked about that you heard. So, I'm aware that you have a strong inner critic. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brenna Lee. You are deserving of good things, my dear. And your inner critic wants to keep you on the hamster wheel of performance to get you to perform good enough to earn the things that you actually are already worthy of. And that cycle, that inner critic is going to get you doing that with the Lord too, where you're going to try to work for love that he's already actually given you. You're going to try to earn like relationship things and other things that God's gifted you with. You're going to try to earn them instead of just resting in the fact that he's already given it to you. Or
Yeah.
beautifully, just beautifully openly receiving the gift, right? And you might not recognize it when it comes because you're busy working for it.
Mhm.
Tell me your thoughts so far.
I'm just thinking about a relationship I have right now where it's like it feels like too good for
Mm,
me, and I feel like I'm like having to work for it, or like if I bring my issues to it, then it'll be like too much, or
yeah,
like yeah, basically like I'm working for it. Like I'm trying to not to keep it by not being who I am.
right. And so, what would it look like for you to get off the hamster wheel and instead of working for it, you just showed up as you in the mess and everything, right? Everything that it can possibly be. Um, like, what would that look like for you to be vulnerable?
Um, I feel like I would be a lot more like angry a lot
Mhm.
and a lot more sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to put your hand on your heart. Brenna Lee, I'm just so aware of the little girl inside of you, like literally holding up like this. Like if this door, right? Outside this door is the anger and the sadness, right? I see this little girl like trying to hold it all back to get this door shut so that she can feel safe, because she's so afraid of people seeing what's behind the door, right? The anger, the sadness. But it's keeping you isolated and it's keeping you stuck in performance. What does it look like for you to walk away from the door and just show up as what it is, in the anger and in the sadness? And starting here, right? Like, I'm not even saying you have to start with the person you're in a relationship with or anyone else, but that you would show up here and recognize, instead of pushing that anger behind the door, pushing the sadness behind the door, sitting and recognizing the pain of that.
Yeah. I don't know what it would look like.
Yeah. Can I share what I think it could look like?
Yeah.
Okay. It could look like validation, and that means you slowing down enough to validate yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have to slow down enough to validate yourself. It also looks like letting the pain be there. So let's say, give me an example of, well, let me ask you this. Do you get anxiety?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when anxiety comes, let's say you lay down your head at night and you start to get anxious about something in the day or something that's coming up the next day or whatever, because anxiety is worrying about the future. Depression is worrying about the past. Okay. So what I want you to do when anxiety comes up is I want you to be present, and I want you to find out how you actually feel, right? Anxiety is a surface like activity. If you look at the water, like there's movement on the surface, but there's something underneath there that's stirring it up, right? And so what's underneath the anxiety? That's what you need to find out. Same with sadness, same with anger. So these emotions or experiences in your body are surface things that actually have things underneath them that need more exploration. And you taking the time to explore that with yourself is, number one, going to help build trust with yourself. It's also going to make you show up for yourself and connect to yourself even more. So the anxiety comes, you ask, why am I anxious? Connect to your heart. Why am I anxious? Oh, I'm worried about such and such tomorrow. Why? And you keep asking the why until you get to the answer that feels real. When you get to that real answer, I want you to invite a person you trust, like not literally, but imagine like someone who's safe in your life. Imagine them coming and giving you the support that you actually need, like to come alongside you. Does that feel like something you could do?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think slowing down is a huge part of it too.
It is. You slowing down, because performance keeps you going. So
Yeah.
you slowing down long enough to connect is going to be huge. And then your next steps after that would be to vulnerably invite somebody else to be in that process that matters to you. So the person you're in a relationship with, that you could be honest and vulnerable and share and say, I realize that, you know, I don't let you see vulnerable sides of me. And this is what I'm aware of that I do to protect myself. And this is how it looks. And then ask them for feedback on it.
What do you mean
What would be your,
feedback?
huh?
Oh, go ahead.
What was that last thing you said?
I said, what do you mean by feedback?
Oh, yeah. So like, what's the name of the person you're in a relationship with?
Amanda.
Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, this is what I do to protect myself. What do you see that show up? How do you see that show up in our relationship? Because I do this, this, and this is how I'm showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then feedback comes after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think you're gonna have to go after this inner critic big time. You're gonna have to go after the self-hatred that's at work here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yeah. But also like self-judgment and shame too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 And like along those lines, so like if you are meeting self-hatred with love and then self-judgment with, or shame with compassion, and self-judgment, does that look like with like acceptance or like validation, or what is that? How do you meet yourself when you have judgment?
Yeah. So it's, you know, boundaries, right? So boundaries aren't just for us to have in relationships with other people, they're also for us too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can set up, like, there's internal personal boundaries that we could set up on ourselves where we're like, we're not allowed to, you'll see something come up and you'll be aware of judgment and you'll be like, that's a boundary. We're actually not allowed to partner with judgment. We're not going to judge ourselves in this moment. And then we'll give ourselves self-compassion. What's the real need? Like, I'm going to judge myself. What's my true need here?
Yeah.
It's not to be critical of myself. My true need is rooted somewhere in something like, I want to perform really well, so I'm accepted here, or I want to make sure that I'm perfect so that I'm lovable, right? There's some sort of, it's a form of control so that you can show up in a way that actually makes you accepted by others. The problem is it's a lie.
Yeah.
Control is an illusion. You have zero control over whether or not I accept you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how perfect you show up. I don't care how well you do it. You could research me and find out all the things that I love, and you could make sure you show up exactly how I need you to, and I could still reject you
Mm-hmm.
because you have no control over if I accept you or not. Right? Like, this is hitting some people really hard. Like, really let that in. We think we have control over that. You don't. And then once we get that in deep enough, we will stop controlling. But, you know, growing up, our parents typically, what they do, like, you make me mad. You make me this. I'm very disappointed in you. Right. And so we feel and we internalize all of that. We take it in and we go, oh, I did that to make them disappointed. I have the power to make them angry. I have the power to make them withhold love from me. I have the power, right? And the truth is, you could do everything perfect and still people won't accept you because and that all by itself, you guys, should prove to you that control is an illusion. It's it's like I remember this blowing my mind when I'm like, oh, I don't have control over everything I think I do. And so one of the most beautiful things that somebody told me was like, I was like, oh, what they asked me what I was afraid of. I said, I'm afraid they're not going to like me. I'm afraid they're going to hate me. And she goes, you're not that powerful. You're not powerful, so powerful that you control other people's emotions, because they show up, right? I show up. I could be totally in the spirit. Like, let's just say God is with me in that moment. His presence is on me. Let's say I'm like, I glow. I'm glowing. God is on me so much, right? Physically glowing. And this other, I show up like that, and I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to love. I'm ready to give. Doesn't matter, right? Like whatever perfection looks like, you show up as that. And this other person shows up with their lenses and their filters and their own struggles and their own pain. If it's a friend, they bring their own friend pain. I can show up in the best of ways as a friend, and they will still reject me because of their own friend pain, because there is a space in between. Do you see this? Like, there's a space right here. There's a place where I start and stop, and this person starts and stops. And it should not be this. This is called enmeshment. And this is where you think you control each other, but you don't. It's a lie. I control me. You control you. And you can choose into love with me, or you can choose out of love with me. You can choose into hating me. You are actually completely powerful enough to do that. And it's all on you. It has nothing to do with how I behave. Nothing at all. It's the decisions that another person makes about me based on their own experiences, their own filters, their own pain. That's relationally in romantic relationships, and that's friends, that's family, that's everything. Like, the only person, we can hopefully have any sense of control. God gave us self-control as a fruit of the Spirit. That's it. And then responsibility, we're responsible for ourselves. If I, as a mother, right, of course you're going to be like, well, as a mom, you're responsible for other people. Yeah, I am. As a mom, when my kids are growing up, I'm responsible for them. But if I focused more on self-control and having responsibility for this person here, it will actually make me show up as a better mom, instead of trying to control them and be over responsible for them and worrying about them. Right? So, over self-control, over responsibility, those things, like, we got to deal with our beliefs around some of those, that we just don't have the power to control people and how they feel about us and think about us.
Yeah.
We will spin our wheels trying to convince them to think and feel otherwise. They get to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Went on a little tangent there. Wasn't just about you, Brianna Lee, so, but okay. So tell me, what are some things you can do moving forward in building trust with yourself and seeing that the desires that you're scared of because you're afraid they're unattainable? Like, what are you going to do? What's your next consideration?
Yeah, I think building trust with myself is huge. So like just being really, like you said, more ruthless with self-judgment or the inner critic. And then like taking the time to look at that, see what I need, take the time to actually like validate my needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I think a lot of it right now is subconscious. And then I try and like think of my needs or my desires, and I'm like, I'm not worthy of that. But like really, there's probably this whole narrative going on that's
Mhm.
subconscious where that would make me believe that in the first place.
Yeah. And when you become aware, like right now, you're aware of narratives that are probably there.
Yeah.
Journaling is going to be great for this. Start journaling about that and see what comes out. Like your truth is going to come out as you journal. And then if you want a different narrative, then create one.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? You were the one that you were the powerful one that chose the first narrative that's not serving you.
Yeah.
So now you get to choose a new narrative and decide, no, I want to believe that marriage is for me, that I could have the love of my life and build a life that glorifies God and has children, like whatever your dream is, right? And write that out. Start letting that new thought like get in there and start working it in there. Because our feelings come from our thoughts, right? And our thoughts, those are the Bible says take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And so we can take every thought and say, this doesn't work. This doesn't serve how God created me. This doesn't serve how God loves me. This doesn't serve my identity. This doesn't serve how I want to show up to the world. So I want a new thought. What's my new thought that I want? And then have you listened to Heather at all? Any of Heather's recordings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Her stuff's great. Like she has the whole thing about, it has to be something your nervous system can believe, at least like it can feel at least a little bit true, like, oh, yeah, that seems true, even if it's just like okay, yeah, I could see that. As long as your nervous system can kind of like grab onto it, that's all you need, and then you take off from there. So she'll add like, I'm learning, I'm growing in, like she adds those little quantifiers in the beginning of the new thought, like if someone came to me and said, I think I'm ugly, I want you to help me with how I view myself, I wouldn't tell them to start declaring in the mirror, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. It's not gonna go anywhere. But they could declare in the mirror, I'm learning what's beautiful about you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going on the journey to see what's beautiful about you. I'm unraveling the lies that have told you you're ugly. And those are true, right? So our nervous system can grab those. And then next thing you know, that same person, if you ask them before, they could never say anything that was beautiful about themselves. Now all of a sudden, they're like, I'm like, tell me one thing you think's beautiful about you. They're like, I have beautiful eyes. And that's a huge breakthrough, right? And so here's another caveat to your inner critic. Celebrate those wins. Stating I have beautiful eyes to people with an inner critic, that's not going to be a big deal because it's not some big giant change. The inner critic will never let you celebrate small things. So celebrating those small wins is so vital. Do not, like in performance, you're going to want to push past these little things, slow down, right? And pay attention. That's going to be so vital to you and your growth. Wow. Again, to the example of beauty. Couldn't say anything nice about myself before. Now I can say I have beautiful eyes and I believe it. That's a huge win. Oh my gosh. Celebrate that. Tell a friend. Repeat it. The more you talk about it, the better. Celebrate it. Every time you have a win, celebrate it. It's very, very important to your health and your growth and to building trust with yourself. Thoughts. I could keep going. I mean, thoughts,
No, it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good.
So yeah, celebrate those wins. That's going to be huge. That was huge for me. like focusing, because I'm the push past, let's keep working, let's keep going person. So minimizing, and I'm a great minimizer. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to have to really work hard to see what was good. If you're depressed and you're like, depressed people, I'm like, you can always find something to celebrate. You got out of bed. Woo! I got out of bed. Yeah. Like, celebrate something. Find something to celebrate. It's important. That damn inner critic wants you to be perfect. No, it's not about perfect. All right, Brenna, how are you feeling before I move on?
Good. I have a lot to do. I'll be good. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Who's next? Jesse.
Karina is next.
Hey, girl.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hey, Karina, there you are. How are you?
Um, I kind of feel embarrassed sharing this, but I'm just gonna do it.
Just do it, girl.
So a few weeks ago, I was going to bed and I felt like God revealed who my spouse would be. And I know it sounds crazy, and it was just like it just happened. It was like this deep sense of knowing, and I was shocked and I couldn't believe it, and I was just praying and praying that if it's not from God, to take it away. And I stayed up for 2 hours after that, just holding my face because I couldn't believe it. And then after that, I went to my mentor and told him, started asking some questions like, how do you know when you heard from God versus like what your own thoughts are and your own feelings are? And then I went to another friend and I shared the same thing. And I was really embarrassed to share it because I just feel like it was such a vulnerable thing to share. And I know, like, I just get scared of people judging me and, yeah, thinking I'm like vulnerable and weak. But anyway, so both of them, actually, my best friend sent me a video after that talking about like how God is not that specific. And so kind of like invalidating what I felt like I heard from God. And so I started second guessing myself. And then my mentor also told me the same thing and started asking me questions like, do you even know this guy? And then he said, I'm very far from the target, that I don't really know him enough to know. And so I just started second guessing myself, and it's not their fault. I know I need to learn to trust myself, kind of like Brianne. I'm glad she shared, because it kind of touched on what I was going to talk about. But yeah, then I started second guessing myself, and then I just don't know if now at this point, I don't know if it was really from God. And I just have been getting a lot of anxiety because of it. And yeah.
So what brings you anxiety about it?
I guess because I maybe the expectation. So I don't, at this point, the way things look, it's not even, I'm not even dating this guy. We're just getting to know each other. And I think when I sense him not really talking to me as much or not responding as fast, then I start to feel like, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe what I heard wasn't what it was. And I have these thoughts of not knowing what it's like to be in love, because I don't feel like I've fully opened up to someone ever. So I don't know if I'm meant to allow this person in. I'm a mess. I feel like all my thoughts are so tangled up right now.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that answered your question.
a little bit. I have so many thoughts. I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. So a couple things. I'm just gonna share a whole bunch, okay? One, um, hearing from God about a person being your spouse is kind of tricky because it also involves the free will of that person, right? And so you could absolutely have heard from God that he's like, this person can be your spouse. Now, I'm just going to tell you right up front, I don't believe in the one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't believe God is that cruel. To me, that's very cruel. That God would say, you have the one, and also he gave us free will. So the one could choose out from me, and I'm stuck with not the one. And you're setting yourself up for disappointment and struggle and feeling neglected and abused. Like there's just so much that I've seen people go through that I'm like, God cannot, I don't believe in the one because it doesn't line up with God's goodness and how God set things up because of free will. And it's painful. Like, and then again, it gets you into control, right? It's tormenting. Yeah, Alex, it's tormenting. It gets you into like a space of control because now you're trying to control it because if you think like this is the one, then I have to make sure this comes to pass. And then you end up on a mission instead of just enjoying a relationship and a process, right? That may or may not work out into a relationship. Like dating, you guys, is supposed to be about a season of discovery. First and foremost, self-discovery. What are you learning about yourself in this pursuit with this person? Here. What are you learning about God? That's great too. And then it's a journey also about learning about that other person, right? But if you're so wrapped up into other people's process, God's process, and all of that, like I feel like it's like having part of it, just not all of it working for you because it's like having a bike with missing the handlebars, right? Like, or a bike that's missing one of the tires, or a bike that's missing the chain, and so it doesn't work right. Because yeah, so those are my views on the one. I don't believe it's real. I think God made us very powerful and he gave us the fruits of the spirit and gifts of the kingdom, love, joy, peace. Those are all things that we can use to serve one another. And so locking us down into a one, I struggle with that. I don't feel like it represents how powerful God made us because someone can powerfully choose out of relationship with you or powerfully choose into it. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. So let's get that aside. Now, then there's the component about praying, right? And hearing from God. And that person, I know people who felt like they're like, I know I'm gonna marry that person. Like they didn't say, God told me this, but they just had a extreme knowing. They're like, that's my wife. Boom, done. I know who I want. And they pursued that person and they ended up married and it all went to shit. It all went to shit. And then guess who gets blamed?
God.
Why? Because you're not being powerful as God chose you. And you think, and I'm not saying you, the friends that I've had that have gone through this, they thought God was going to make it all magically work out because they felt led and directed to pursue somebody. And I'm not saying God's not part of that. I 100% think God gives them those things. But when we start acting powerless, right? And we don't show up the way we would, and I don't know if that's making sense, and I'm hoping it is, and maybe I need to explain that a little bit more of what I mean. But is that making sense? Like powerless to God and not showing up the same?
Mm-hmm. Kind of like not putting in the work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you kind of like ride on autopilot a little bit, and you kind of, and you do here's the thing too. All of those people would have said, I did my best, but I watched them show up better for the next relationship. There was a part of them that was hiding behind the God component, right? And like they were relying on God to work it all out somehow magically by the Spirit. And so, but God made us powerful people to choose into things, to choose out of things. And He doesn't control us, and He doesn't control our situations. We get to choose. We choose into it. So
I noticed that once I felt that impression, it wasn't like anything audibly from God. You know what I mean? It was just like this deep, random, just impression and feeling, almost like that knowing. But then I was talking to my friend and I said, yeah, like I don't know if it's gonna happen. Like there's like his part, and if God speaks to him, and like if He chooses to be in a relationship, I know our will is a part of it, right? But I noticed that after I wasn't anxious after that, I almost felt like God was granting me permission to open up to this person and to be myself, almost in that relationship with that guy. So I'm wondering if that's what it's all about. It's not necessarily like, oh, this is the guy you're gonna marry, and here's all this added pressure. It was more like, okay, you don't have to pretend to be someone you're not, and just like allow this person in. They're safe, so there's a possibility here.
Yeah.
I didn't feel anxious or anything after I. So
yeah, and you're hitting it right on the head where I was going to go with this. 100%. This, in anything that we feel like God is leading us into, or God said to do it, because look, I have heard from God, 100% heard from God, and my interpretation was completely wrong. And so the way I interpreted it made me powerless to the situation. It made me stuck. It made me think there was no other options, right? And so that's when it becomes a problem. When it makes me doubt my relationship with God, when it makes me question things, right? That's when that stuff becomes a problem. And so what we don't want to do, what we want to be aware of is like, okay, God said this. This is what I felt like God either said, right? He said, or He led me, or brought my attention to, like whatever the verbiage is, right? Okay, pay attention to this. Great. I'm just going to give an example. This will help. In the beginning, when I first got saved, radically saved, and it was beautiful. Anyway, I'll need to share my testimony sometime. Anyway, it was about 6 months or so into being at this church, and I was seeing a lot of dysfunctional things, and I was like, there's a lot of gossip, a lot of backbiting, a lot of like not so nice things, not so great things. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be here. Like, maybe I should leave this church. This seems like kind of crazy, right? And I heard God tell me, like, the impression He gave me was this: everywhere you go, there's humans. In every church, there's going to be people. Now, here's what I took that as: don't leave. That was my interpretation. I took that as God saying, don't leave, because there's people everywhere. Why would you leave? And I was like, oh, I suffered so much spiritual abuse at that church for 16 years, not only myself, but my husband and my friends and my children. And, you know, I have 2 children right now that have so much church pain that they want nothing to do with any of it.
Mm.
And so I look back and somebody asked me, they said, "Why'd you stay so long?" I said, "Because God told me to." And they said, "Did he tell you that? What did he say?" And I told them, he said, "In every church, there's people." And she said, I didn't hear him ever say, "You better stay here." Did he
Mm.
say that? And I said, "No, he didn't." And she goes, "That was your interpretation. That's how you took it." Right. And so those are the things when we're hearing from the Lord, you guys are absolutely hearing from the Lord. Like, that's not the question. The question is, is my interpretation off?
Mm.
You know, and something that you spoke on was expectations.
Yeah.
And so in this relationship, like figuring out what your expectations are, right? And if those are set in a nice place where it's healthy, right? It's like, because again, if you have expectations, this is my husband, everything you do is going to drive toward that.
Mm.
And you're actually going to miss a whole bunch of beautiful things, even if he is your husband. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if he is your husband, being driven by that is going to make you crazy. Right? Like, you're going to show up different. You're not going to be fully yourself. There's going to be things you're going to get into performance to meet this goal and expectation of this is my husband.
Mm.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you see that? So I would set the expectation a little different
Mhm.
and be like, what expectation would serve me really well where I could explore a relationship with this guy because he does have free will. He could choose out a relationship with me and not want to do it.
Mhm.
And so does that mean that we miss God? Right? I mean, it could mean that, but putting all that pressure, that's a lot of pressure. This is my husband. That's so much pressure
Yeah.
for you and him, whether he knows about it or not. Right? Like, he'll feel the pressure. And the pressure will be what drives your relationship, and it could hurt it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm. So should I just go with the flow? Should I just go with the flow, or because also another conversation, I had a Valentine's Day with my that same friend and another friend, and they started talking about their boyfriends, and then they asked me like if there's anyone, and then I mentioned this guy. Obviously he's not my boyfriend and we're not dating because he's in another state, but
Mm-hmm.
after they made comments about you should know where you stand with this guy, he should be direct, but I feel safe with him and I don't feel the need to ask him. But now I'm overthinking and thinking, should I have that conversation with him? Like, I don't want to pressure him and I don't want to ruin things. So those are like your thoughts.
Yeah.
That
I'd love for you to journal and separate all that. Like,
Yeah.
I'd love for you to journal, separate everybody's opinions and thoughts,
Mhm.
and get back to what it is what you want, right? And so at the same time, I don't want you hiding, like, and I also don't want you compromising. You deserve a man that shows up and is direct, and he's not going to string you along and use you like a girlfriend but never commit, right?
Yeah.
Like those guys that emotionally date their friends that are girls. Like, you don't want that either, right? You don't want him to not show up in his full intention of whatever that is. If that's just seeing you as a friend and seeing what else there is, or if it's, hey, let's see if you're my girlfriend and let's go there. But you know, I don't know the full context of what your friend said, but you do deserve a man that if you're going to be giving your heart, and you know, if you're going to start opening your heart to that he's Is he someone trustworthy to have your heart? And only you can work this out, right? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't, again, this is, yeah, friend relationships, Amanda wrote. Yeah, dude, I've seen so many men do that to women where I live. It's just like, oh my gosh, quit using that girl to meet your emotional needs, knock it off. And so anyway, I've had so many thoughts that I keep losing, and I didn't write everything down because I have other thoughts. Karina, you're allowed to trust yourself and be wrong.
Mm.
Okay. You're allowed to trust yourself and be wrong. It's really important that you know that.
Yeah.
It's easy to believe I can trust myself and be right. Like, when, oh, I'll trust me when I'm right. Like, that's great, right? But working on like that internal system of I'm allowed to trust myself and be wrong. Like, I cannot take somebody's advice and be wrong.
Yeah. And I think yeah. That way I can own up to it and not blame other people's opinions about my decisions.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. And that's why I'd love for you to journal that out and find out, what do I want to do here? Like,
Yeah.
it's not about what everybody else said, but what do I want? And, take risks.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling more condemned over the hearing from God thing? Tell me your thoughts.
I kind of just want to pin it and not really entertain it too much or think about it too much and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if it is from God, then like he's probably, I don't know, there'll be more to it. It's not just a one-time thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it'll be revealed as I go. So I'll just like pin it and then move forward. So
When you buy gifts for people, do you have a hard time holding on to them? Like, when you buy it, do you want to give it to them right away?
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm sensing, that like you heard this, like, potential. This is a potential gift of a relationship, right? And you're like, oh, I want to give the present. I want to give it away. I can't hold on to it, right? So that's the part, right? That you're going to have to be like, okay, we'll pin it. We'll see what happens. We'll let what's going to come. I'll show up authentically me. And when the gift reveals itself, whatever the gift is, when it reveals itself, it'll be perfect in its timing.
Yeah.
And so put your hand on your heart. We're allowed to pin this. We're allowed to wait on this and see what happens. We're allowed to explore it. We don't have to work toward anything concerning this. I get to just enjoy the discovery process. I will practice patience.
Learn.
I am learning to practice patience. Especially when it comes to love. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Okay. All right, Karina. That was
Thank
fun. Thanks.
that. You're amazing.
You are. That was good. Karina and Brianna Lee, make sure you go back into the chat and the thread and see the love that people are sending you. I love how supportive you guys are. Man, I'm having struggle with words. All right, who's next?
All right. Deanne is next.
Deanne.
Hey, Melanie.
Ooh, this is so fun. Where are you?
I'm
There-
can you-
I see you.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. Man, I wish I had this conversation 8 years ago because I am the product, or my marriage is the product of this very thing. And yeah, I mean, the last 8 years have kind of been a bit of an emotionally abusive situation for me. So
I'm sorry.
yeah, it sucks. But yeah, I can only move forward and
Yeah.
learning all the codependency stuff that brought me to this place as well, you know, and all the spiritual manipulation. And so, yeah. And then of course, yeah, I don't know, just thinking about all the marriage counseling I go to, and I heard another one of your conversations just talking about how marriage has now become like an idol in Christianity, and just so felt that in so much marriage counseling. Sorry, it's a bit of a tangent, but kind of getting to where I'm going as well.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I've been waiting to have this with you because I know you married, and I know I just kind of heard perspectives a bit and just really appreciated them. So yeah, so things with my husband for the last 8 years, like we definitely got together just because all the signs were right. I came from a very prophetic culture. I went to ministry school at Bethel.
Okay.
And all the signs were
So did
there.
I, by the way, so did I.
Yep, lots of good stuff and lots of
That's where I saw all the emotion, like all the guys emotionally using friends that were girls. Yeah, instead of committing to them, they would just use them.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely saw that too. But yeah, so we're in the process now. 8 years in, I have we have a 2-year-old, and I've experienced a lot of trauma in the last 5 years of our marriage. We lost our first when I was weeks pregnant. We were in South Africa doing mission work with my parents, got thrown back into all the turmoil of my childhood stuff. So it's just been a lot. But I have found myself in this place where I'm trying to, like, I know he's getting counseling from a great man who was actually mentored under Jack Frost's ministry.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and I think we're coming to like a really good place, but I'm just really struggling to kind of like there's this tension in me where it's like going to try and restore our relationship and give him opportunity, but also just having so much trust issues, you know, and just not being able to really, I feel like there's this spinning thing of me, like the pull of like, I want to connect and I want to be able to build trust. And I'm also just really pissed off and angry at him. And then I go wanting comfort, and then I get triggered because of his stuff. And I just feel like we have this like perfect trigger situation going on in our relationship. So I don't really know my question. I don't really know how to deal with it. I know that there's codependency stuff going on in me. And yeah, I don't know really what else to say, but I just guess I'm just don't know how to move forward.
Yeah. So you're doing Alive and Free. Are you doing anything else?
I mean, I went through trauma counseling. I did EMDR for over a year. After I lost my first, I was in South Africa and went through over a year of trauma therapy there. We've tried to do marriage counseling, but it just feels like it explodes every time. Like it makes it worse. And a lot of a lot of it has just been because they just see my behavior and just being like, well, you just need to pull your shit together so you can make this marriage work. And I'm like, no, there's a reason I'm so angry.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that hasn't, yeah.
And that's the part, like, it's not like you just need to feel safe. That's
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that, and even with Alive and Free, I'm just hearing that over and over again in this cry in me of like, I just want to be safe. I just want to be safe. And my son's birth was very, really traumatic. I was fighting for a natural birth. My doctor, like there's 70% C-section rate in South Africa. I just had no, like, so then my parents were fighting for the doctor, not me. And my husband was kind of like, we'll just be okay. God will just all work it out. And so I don't know. There's just like this big thing of just feeling so unsafe and so unable of reaching safety, and the people around me don't, like closest to me, don't feel safe. And yeah.
It sounds like too that you don't feel like you have a voice. Am
Mm.
I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember going through SOZOs back at Bethel 12 years ago, and that was still the issue. And I'm like, why is this still the issue?
Well, it's hard, if if somebody harms me and I go to the doctor and get that addressed, right? Say I have a wound here, right? And it starts to heal. Like I go through all the things to make it heal. But then my husband comes along and starts picking at it.
Yeah.
Or my parents come along and start picking at it, right? Like it's not going to heal. And so if this wound is like I have no voice, and they keep coming along and doing things that prove that this is still an issue, that's how that can still feel like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so sometimes it's about boundaries, right? So like with parents, boundaries for sure.
Yeah.
Like, all right, parents, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
And here's my boundaries. And knowing ahead of time what they can and can't do, right? So like, guess what? You don't get to be in the hospital with us because my last experience was this. So unless you can promise me that you're going to support what I want, because I don't need you there to convince me how I'm wrong.
Right.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
This is what I want. It's not about right or wrong. This is what I want. This is about me having a voice for what I want. Right. And if you're not going to support what I want, then you don't get to be there.
Yeah.
And so places where, and the Lord will show you this in your time alone with him when you take all this to him, but finding out the places, where do I need more boundaries with my parents? Because they're still stripping me of my voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I went to South Africa and I was like, I knew all the boundaries I needed to have. It just felt, and I mean, it's different now. I'm back in the States and in a much safer community, but it's still just this thing of just feeling like I come with my boundaries. And I think, and I don't know if it's a South African culture thing or, like it's just very much like, I have noticed it in South African culture where it's just like, do whatever you can to make everybody happy around you. Like it's very servanthood mentality. It's beautiful, but it has so many flaws to it. But then also being in a ministry family, my dad being a pastor and on the mission field our whole lives, like just being extra. But yeah, just going back, like I felt like my parents just kind of like, I think it's just still this deeper thing of me just feeling like somehow I'm innately wrong. And not being, like it's almost like they convinced me that there's like I am flawed, even though I'm like I get on Alive and Free and I'm like, yeah, that's right, but then I leave and I'm like, it's just the struggle with it's like this, I don't know, the fights between the tensions of what I don't know, it's still so many tensions inside of me.
And it's all internal you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Where it's like some things I know are right, but then I go to put them into practice and it's just like, I feel so insecure in them and so walked out of it.
Right. And so this is where little Deanne
Uh-huh.
is speaking up. She's like,
Mm.
wait. Nope, we've always been wrong. Wait. We've never been able to trust ourselves. We have to ask mom. We have to ask dad. We
Yeah.
have to go to God, because God doesn't even empower us, right? So
Yeah.
we can't even make choices from a free will because we don't trust ourselves. So
Yeah.
this is that thing where part of you, your adult self, right? So like your brain, if the logic part is like, no, we understand that
Yeah.
this is true. So you're with Alive and Free, and you're like, your adult self's like, woo, this makes sense. This is great. And then you walk away and your heart's like, pain. No, it can't be true. It's not true here. That's not real. That's not how we experienced it. And so there's just a lot of childhood pain that I think, you said you did a lot of sozo stuff.
Yeah.
I really think Encounters is going to be your best tool
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
Encounters with the Lord, having him go back into your childhood with you going back into memories with the Lord, where adult you gets to reaffirm to little you, I'm here for you. This is that thing that my husband has huge breakthrough on, where every morning for 6 months or more, I don't even know how long it was maybe even a year, he would start his morning out. He would have a routine, and what he would do is he'd look in the mirror and he'd say, you're not that little boy anymore. I will
Yeah.
never let those things happen to you again.
Mm.
I'm here to protect you. I'm here to make sure that you're safe. And you're allowed to make mistakes because I know how to clean them up.
Mm.
And you're allowed to be wrong because I know how to clean that up.
Mm.
And then it would go into other affirmations of what matters and stuff. And when he would trigger, you're talking about like the trigger after leaving, like that internal struggle, when that insecurity starts to pop up, right? So
Yeah.
the insecurity would pop up for my husband, and he would say, this person, whatever the trigger was with, this person is not my mom and dad. This isn't
Yeah.
my George is not my dad. George is my boss. I have a voice here. I actually have autonomy here, an agency. I can walk away if I want to. I can tell them no if I want to. I can decide because I'm an adult now. I'm not a little kid who's stuck. I get to choose.
Yeah.
And that's been really powerful for him in those moments, reminding himself that he's not a little kid anymore, because we can feel that trigger, right? It feels like we can't choose. It feels like, because when we trigger, it's like we're that little kid again.
Yeah.
And so there's parts of us that need to grow up still. And so in the growing up, that's what some of those reconciling, like having you go back as your adult self
Mm-hmm.
to your little self, it actually does help grow you up.
Yeah.
And then you always leave your little self with Jesus. Like invite Jesus. So your little self's not alone.
Mm.
And you guys, this stuff's real. Like God is outside of time, right? We've talked about this before. God's already been there. Like this is about us recognizing the ways he could have been there for us back then, and we just didn't know. And then we invite God to be God in that time. And it's as if he always had been.
Mm.
It's pretty powerful. I don't know if that's making sense to people, but
Yeah.
so Deanne, I just feel like validating you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And it's not over.
Yeah.
It's not too late. It's not like pointless or worthless. Like the fact that your husband, I would find out what your deal breakers are. Like I have deal breakers for my husband. When we were working through a hard season, you have to get community. He didn't have any community.
Mm.
I was like, get community or get a counselor. If you have to pay for community, somebody who's going to keep you accountable, I don't care.
Yeah.
But you doing nothing isn't going to work for me. And so you get 1 month to figure that out. And in 1 month, if that's not figured out, I move out
Okay.
because I'm dead effing serious about this. Right.
Mm. Yeah.
And so, what are your deal breakers? That's the thing. Like, what do I need? I need a man who's going to be accountable to other people besides me. I can't be the biggest person in this world because he actually can minimize me, right? Like he can shut me down. I can shut him down too. It's like that person you're closest to, you can shut them down real easy. You can explain away why they're wrong, right?
Mhm.
But some of those outside voices, and then how many times have you told your husband something and then they go talk to a friend and they're like, you know what he said? He said this. I freaking said that for the last 6 years.
I knew
And
you were going to start it.
Yep.
I was like, I think I've had this conversation with so many women.
so mad. And so, and I'm like, that alone shows you shouldn't just have me in your life. You need other people. And so, and I've done the same. My husband's told me the same. Like,
Yeah.
there's been things in business where he's like, you're an amazing businesswoman, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you don't know, right? But then someone in business says, wow, like you are amazing. They say exactly what my husband said. And I'm like, it must be true. So it works both ways, right? But so yeah, having like recognizing, taking the time to figure out, what do I need to feel safe in this relationship? What does safety look like? Safety doesn't look like him being perfect, right?
Yeah.
So what does it look like? And then when you find those things, if it is like you need, like mine was, you have to meet with people, have a community, or that people you're getting vulnerable with, or someone that you pay to do that. Make yourself recognize every time he's doing it, because your nervous system has to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And I've so many times had to been like, look, nervous system, look at that change he did. I know it feels like it's only this, it's like 3 drops in a bucket, but damn it, it's 3 drops in a bucket. And we're going to recognize that. We're going to honor that, period. Right. And so
Yeah. That's really good. Because I know when he cries, it's just like, I want to be like, but all of this. So
Yes.
that's really good.
And then it forces that fear, right, to start to get behind me, right? I can't be looking at this through a lens of fear and always trying to be safe. I need to start looking for places that I am safe.
That's good.
So,
Sorry, I'm writing it all down. That's
Yeah.
good.
so yeah. Doing great.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, Jesse. Jesse, you're married. You got any comments?
I'm taking it for myself too. It's good. It's helpful. Hannah asked a good question. What do you do or say to people who say they don't do ultimatums?
Well, I don't give ultimatums. I give boundaries.
It's good.
Right. So when I told my husband, this is what I need from you, can you do that? He said yes. I said, great. Can you do it in the next month? I need that done fast so I can start to feel safe in this relationship and I can start to let my guards down with you. I really badly want to let my guards down. And he said, yeah, I can do that in the next month. Great. Just so you know, if it's not handled in a month, I'm going to be moving out, because this is how, like, for me, this is how important and serious this is. And so when I say I don't feel safe, this is how unsafe I feel. And I would feel the need to move out. Because if you're not going to work on yourself, what other alternative is there? Why would I stay here? So it's not an ultimatum. It's just what I'm going to have to do to feel safe again. And so it's those statements of boundaries where it's like, I don't know what you're going to do, but here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so there is a way to communicate it without it being like, you do this or I'm moving out. You know? And so, and again, when you get the buy-in from them up front and then letting them know, because then it frees you. You don't have to harass them. Like I did this for God too long. Are you going to go see Justin? Are you going to go see Justin? When are you going to go see Justin? Hey, so, you know, I know we talked a month ago and you said you're going to see Justin. And when are you going to do that? And so you just become a nag. You just become a nag. When I finally stopped doing that and said, I'm going to be moving out because I need to do that so I can get away from you and focus on myself. And I can get my focus on me and not worry about what you're doing. And we'll go from there. And so I did end up moving out for like 2 days one time in our whole relationship. I did that one time. And that was, he was so mad. He triggered. He was so pissed. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe I'll pull him on. He says he'll join and come on the call with me, but he's like, what am I going to talk about? I was like, I don't know. They can ask questions, but he's not a coach. He's not going to be the guy that coaches you through stuff. He's just going to, you know, have a story to tell here or there. So it solely would really be based on you guys getting to know our process. So yeah, it's not an ultimatum, guys. It's about boundaries. And so if we're using it to manipulate, it's wrong, right? But it's that thing. It's like, well, what else? If I'm saying this matters to me, then what else would I do? If I stay here, I'm communicating to you that you can continue to do whatever you want and treat me however you want, and I'll just tolerate it. And I need to stand up for me, right? Like I need to not do that. I couldn't tell my parents no to how they treated me, but I can tell you no. And so I'm telling you no, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. Okay. Who's next?
So good. Alex, you're next.
Hey, Alex.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I am not great.
Oh,
I just have a question because I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I am going to try to briefly share kind of what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
So I'm coming out of some compulsive habits and lifestyle choices, and through Alive and Free, I've learned how to really identify and have self-awareness with all that. And I guess I'm feeling so much pressure to perform now. I felt like I was doing really good at having grace with myself. But I accepted a position as a leader in a leadership role at my church. And so I'm like on staff there now. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform in the place that I want to feel the safest, to expose all of my weaknesses and wounds. But I don't feel safe now that I'm on, like, in leadership, to do that, because I feel like there's a expectation for quote unquote excellence. Actually, that's been like communicated to me. Like, my pastor wants to operate our church like it's Chick-fil-A, or like you know, like, I don't know, just that mentality of like he gave me the book, which is a really good book, and I've started reading it. It's called Boundaries for Leaders, but it's like really performance driven and trying to get the results for your vision kind of thing. And it to me, I just interpret it with the language as like all this pressure on myself that like now I have to be perfect and perform well and be like this type of person that has like good energy and is happy all the time. And like, is a good leader and is like achieved all of this skill level that I don't feel like I've had really the time to develop. And I feel like this pressure on me is not, like, in a way it's helpful because I think I am learning like who is safe to share with and who's not, and not, I don't know. But it's at the same time, I just feel like my problems relative to like the problems of a lot of the other members at my church that I've like grown up in are really different. And I just don't feel safe to share them anymore. And so I don't know. I guess my question is like, this is like all I have. I'm just going to say that. Like, I don't really have my family because I've chosen to like disconnect myself from them so I can grow, which is really painful and really hard because I love my family a lot, but they're just not healthy and they don't choose to grow and be healthy.
Mhm.
And so I came to a church and the church was all I had and I chose to stay here. God gave me a decision, or he gave me a option. You know, you can go move away and do your own thing, or you can stay here. And because I felt some level of safety here, I stayed. But now I feel like that safety has kind of been removed from underneath me. And I feel like all I have is God right now,
Mhm.
which is fine. It's good. He is enough. But I feel like the isolation is real.
Mhm. Okay. Um, is there's a little feedback there. Do you guys hear the echo or is it just me? Okay, there it's gone. Um, first of all, Alex, I'm sorry. Like, this is so hard. And the places that you're holding boundaries, like hoping this would be like a safety net. But when it sounds like when you got put into leadership, it kind of removed that safety net. And now it's almost as if you can't have your humanity, right? Like before you can have your humanity, now you can't.
Mhm.
That often happens with leaders in the church, like they're not allowed to have humanity. And so unfortunately that does happen. But my question is there any, what's the first letter of the name of your pastor?
S.
S. So does S trigger you for dad stuff or parent stuff or family stuff?
It's a good question. I don't know if I've noticed that in particular with dad stuff, but I think more maybe for brother.
Brother? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there on the surface. So, yeah. Yeah. I think some of this feels hard because it is a trigger. I think you're having emotional flashbacks. And so let's just get you powerful again and get that part healed. Okay. Okay. So tell me how how is it similar? Tell me about your brother,
Yeah.
actually.
So yeah, they're actually both in the army.
Okay.
In the army while I've only been going to the church for like 3 years, and my brother just joined the army in the past 2 years, and so that is similar. They're both like similar in the way they look, just being really tall and slender and fair complected, but really dark hair. Their attitudes are kind of the same, and where they always feel like you always feel like they like are cool and have it together, but then like, and they always have like the right answers for everything, but like it's almost like you want more like connection, like it's like the connection isn't really there. I know for my brother, there's a lot of trauma there in our relationship that I have tried to reach out with him and get like real connection. And he's just kind of been like, well, we got to let bygones be bygones. It is what it is. Like, it's okay. But like, I need to know, like, what I need is for him to acknowledge the ways that I hurt him and like be real that it actually did hurt him. If he forgive me, if he really has forgiven me, then tell me he's forgiven me. But then if he hasn't, then to be like honest about it. And because it's just a lot. I mean, like, I just feel like I had this perfectionism that like after I became a Christian that was like so toxic. And I used it to hurt him. But then even before that, like when we were kids, there were ways that I hurt him that were compulsive actions out of like desperate places in my own heart that had needs that needed to be met.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like he has just been a target my entire life of like all of my trauma and my pain.
Okay.
And I feel really guilty about it.
Yeah. You need to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Do you want to release yourself of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like there's a part of you that's trying to have like be absolved. Please absolve me of the things I've done. And it's ambiguous with him. It's not real solid, right? It's just this ambiguous, nebulous thing that's just not concrete. He's not saying, yeah, I think you're terrible and I'm mad at you. And he's not saying you're released, be forgiven, so it sounds like you having that space of ambiguity is really difficult for you to handle.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
because I'm really like, I'm very like intricate about everything, like very detail oriented and type A. Like I think it's a control thing. Like I want to be in control of everything.
Yeah.
And he's always been the one that's like the happy-go-lucky, the class clown. Like we just have different coping mechanisms with things that are polar opposites. So yeah.
Do you feel like this leader S is ambiguous?
Yes. In the way that he communicates. It's like sometimes you have the option to make powerful choices on your own and do what you feel you need to do as a leader in your team or position, but sometimes you don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so as a leader, underneath him, that's great feedback. That's great feedback. Honestly, it's great feedback to be like, oh, this feels ambiguous. It's not really clear. And if I mess up, it feels like, like I don't want to mess up, but I feel like I'm being set up to mess up pretty easily when it's not clear on what I should do. Right. And so if he's like, oh, it's not that much pressure, great. So what are the consequences for failing in this way then? And really like figuring out what it is you need to know that you don't know and ask them those questions. Because I've had ambiguous leaders as well. And you have to really nail them down. They're like Jello. It's like nailing Jello to the wall. It's like, oh, it just falls down. Like, no, I need you to give me a straight up answer because you want me at my best. I'm here to serve the mission, right? So you want me operating at my best. And for me to operate at my best, this is what I need from you. Now, I have patience with ambiguous leaders when I would sit underneath them and I couldn't get exactly what I needed. I was patient to keep asking, and I didn't take it personal when they weren't giving it to me because I realized that this is their issue. It has nothing to do with me. Right. And when I removed those things and I dealt with the authority pain that was there separate from this person, I was able to then let them have a process, but still show up like, hey, I need details on this. Can you give me better direction? Because I'm still kind of in the dark of what you want from me. So there's that. But let's go back to the brother stuff. Because I think this is part
Yeah,
of
thank you for that though. That was really helpful. It makes it feel like lowers the stakes. Like it's like, oh, it's not,
Right.
like I can communicate
Yeah.
and seeing the correlate. Like I didn't even make the connection. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. It's good.
And I think that's what I think is here, is that a lot of this has to do with your brother. And so if we can deal with the brother stuff a little bit, you'll feel like more stability in that relationship with him. So this is fun. I don't know about you. I know you're probably like, woohoo, yeah, fun. But yeah, I'm excited for you. Okay. Because here's the other thing. Alex, we want you out of isolation, right? Like we want you to be free and
No,
not in
it's good. It's freeing for me. So yeah.
good. Okay. I want to make sure we caught up to each other because there was a little bit of delay. Are we on track?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. You can also, do you want to turn your video off and see if that helps?
Yeah.
Okay, that might help. Okay. So do you have a specific thing that you want to work through that happened with your brother that you're holding against yourself? Oh, you're breaking up. No.
Yeah, there are two things that come up and that I don't know. I don't know,
Okay.
move to a different part of my house, it might get worse. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's so much better.
Okay, good. Okay, so there are two things. One that I've dealt with more than the other.
Okay.
And one is that whenever I was really young, this is the one that I've dealt with more than the other. But when I was really young, I was sexually abused, and just out of learned behavior, I had him put his hand down my pants. And that was really something that I have confronted him about, and just not confronted him, but I just brought it up to him, and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry that happened, that happened to me, and kind of shared with him my story of the sexual abuse and what happened as a child. And that was actually a good conversation. So I felt like that had some healing power with it. And then just having time with the Lord. But I still think that is something that I have a lot of shame about at the same time.
Yeah.
Just because it feels like every time I'm around him, I still remember it. And then another thing is that whenever I lived with him, it went a couple years ago, I lived with him, and he was in a really unhealthy place, and he was neglecting his dogs, to the point where I had told him several times, this is not healthy at all. Your dogs are not okay. And I ended up taking them to the Humane Society because they were so unhealthy. And he cut off all communication with me and would not talk to me. And I felt really, really bad about that too, because my whole family was against me after that. And I was trying to explain myself. I've tried to communicate with him several times about this, and he's not doing anything, and I can't stand to watch this anymore. So I'm going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were all just no, it's still unacceptable. You shouldn't have done that. And so that's something that we haven't really even talked about since then, because now his ex-girlfriend, who he was dating at the time, she went and got them from the Humane Society, and now she has them with her. They've broken up since then. But I still feel even though he said he's forgiven me, I still feel resentment or like a distance in our relationship, because before that, whenever we were living together, he was starting to open up and be more vulnerable with me about his relationships and stuff. And I was loving that connection that we were having. But I just feel like that action might have been too far. I don't know. And I have apologized. Yeah, I still haven't really, maybe I just haven't forgiven myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. And can tell me if this is true or not. Okay. Sometimes I see connections that are there that are true. And sometimes it's just like everything's not connected. Okay. So you tell me if this feels true to you or not. But what I'm hearing from this choice with you that you made with the dogs and the price that it paid on your relationship, and not only your relationship with your brother, but also with your family, right? How scary would it be for you to make a similar mistake with your boss, who is also the pastor of the church that is connected to your family, right?
Totally, because that's something I felt recently, like even like God, I feel like is saying like all this stuff that you're learning from Alive and Free is so good. There's so many missing pieces in the church that you're learning and that you could bring into this, but it's going to risk the relationships that you're in now, and you could possibly face the rejection because it's not common, especially in Kentucky, where it's the Bible Belt and every Baptist church is part of the Baptist Association, and it pretty much rules how we do everything. And so it's very frustrating and annoying because I feel like we're missing out on freedom in our churches for people to be able to like live in and serve and be together in real community. Where it doesn't feel like pressure to perform, but it actually feels like you want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel really scared about bringing this to them because I know it's the healthier decision, but I do fear that rejection.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool like comparison with what happened with my brother and my family.
Yeah. And so what I want you to do is are you good at doing encounters?
Yeah, I feel
Yep.
pretty good about them. Yeah.
Okay. I want you to encounter with the Lord around this, like forgiving yourself for the dog thing. I want you to see the Lord taking everybody's attitude against you, and like he's going to protect you from it. Somehow he's going to show you. I don't even want to put words into it. I want him to just do it. So, because it's so awesome when you see him do it. Like he always does things you wouldn't think. It's just like,
Yeah.
and so, so I don't even like to say what it could be because it'll be way better than anything I'll say. But I want you
I'm excited for it. It's going to be good.
yeah, I want you to go back and visit that with the Lord. I want you to see him protect you from all of their opinions. I want you to give the guilt of all of this with your brother over to him, and ask him to help you with this relationship with S, right? The leader. And then I want you to journal about I want you to write down things that you need more direction on. You need more clear explanations that aren't ambiguous lines. And some leaders like to lead that way. Like they're like, it's ambiguous on purpose because you can lead how you want, but then you feel the pressure of, yeah, but I also suffer the consequences if I don't do it the way you're expecting me to.
Yeah, totally. Especially because like my position is operating our financial department too. So I'm like, that is not something I take lightly. Like it's not my money. It's not your money. Like, you know what I mean? So it's, anyway.
Yep. So I think asking, especially around that, absolutely. I would love clearer boundaries, and you just share how you want, it's from your heart, right? Like being aware like that whole time that not trying to control them, right? But showing up as with your needs. Like I've
Yeah.
done that with leaders where I'm trying to control. And so I try to paint it a certain way and I try to make it packaged nice and pretty and in a way that I think they'll accept. And then they reject it and you're like frustrated. You're like, I'm never going to get it right. And so instead
Yeah.
of performing and jumping through all those hoops, just show up as like, figure out what you need and go ask for it.
Yeah, that's
But
helpful, Melanie. Thank you.
Yeah. And make sure you forgive yourself first before you interact with him.
Okay. Yeah, that's vital. Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks
you
for
for that.
sharing.
Super
Yeah,
helpful.
that's great.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, I'm giving it to you. All right, 2 minutes over. That's all I did. Woo, way better than last week. Thanks, ladies. You guys rock. You're amazing. You're amazing. Amazing. How would you guys, so I'm on the sales team. I have a question. I'm on the sales team and there's some women who are on the sales team who haven't done the program. And I'm like, man, I want you guys to come on one of my calls because I want you to see how amazing these women support each other. It's freaking awesome. So would you guys be okay if I invited 2 of our sales team people to just come and listen? Or would that feel unsafe? Unsafe. Like share with me in the chat. And then I was going to obviously ask Sammy and Spencer too, but I can at least let Sammy and Spencer know that I just totally lost my train of thought. I was going to let them know what you guys said. If there was anyone, if there was even one person that said, nope, I don't like that, I absolutely won't do it. So if there's anyone, you can private message me too and say, yeah, I'd be uncomfortable. And I will absolutely honor that. Yeah. Yes. I feel like they're safe. I feel like it will help them serve women in, like in doing sales, you know, for the calls, because this isn't like normal sales, right? Like this is about finding the right fits and helping women see what the program's like the best you can on that sales call. You've all experienced that sales call. And so them getting a chance to see that would be great. But you know what else we could do? We could, nope, that won't work. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, Emily, I thought about the recording, but I don't think it'll show how supportive you guys are in the chat. I don't think the chat's there. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't want to just like have them on without asking. And because that's not cool. Yeah, so we won't have them because that matters to me. Oh, I could do a transcript. Yeah, girl. Dude, I'm gonna do a transcript right now. Let me do it. Are you guys okay with that? If I save the the chat? Cool. Awesome. Nice. Okay, cool. Look at us solving problems together. Okay. All right, Jesse, this time I mean it. It's over to you.
Thanks, Melanie. Such a good call.
All right. I loved it. You guys made my night. All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. For those of you who are staying on, you'll have an hour to connect and just chat with each other and unmute yourselves. And it will be awesome. So enjoy and have a really good night. And we'll see you soon.